He was a billionaire who couldn't feel anything, until a simple housekeeper walked into his hallway carrying a tray of water. What happened next shocked everyone who knew him. The skyscrapers of Mumbai pierced the night sky like silver needles, their lights dancing against the darkness. But Arjun Mehta saw none of it. He sat alone in his penthouse office, a glass of aged scotch untouched in his hand, staring at nothing. 38 years old, a man whose wealth made headlines, whose name commanded respect in every boardroom across India. Yet inside, he felt hollow, a shell of success wrapped around emptiness. Women had always been part of his world. Bollywood actresses with rehearsed smiles, fashion models draped in designer silk, society women whispering sweet promises under chandeliers. But for years, nothing stirred within him. No quickening of his pulse, no warmth in his chest, no desire in his blood. Doctors called it stress-induced. Therapists blamed past heartbreak. But Arjun knew the truth was simpler and more terrifying. He had gone completely numb. That night, long past midnight, he finally left his office and walked through the mansion's silent corridors. The air conditioning hummed softly, and his footsteps echoed against marble floors. He loosened his tie, exhaustion pulling at his shoulders. Then he heard something, soft footsteps, lighter than his own, accompanied by gentle humming. He turned the corner and stopped breathing. There she was, Priya Sharma, the housekeeper. She moved slowly down the hallway, carrying a silver tray with a water jug and glass. Her dark hair was pulled into a simple bun, a few strands escaping to frame her face. The plain uniform she wore was nothing special, yet somehow on her, it seemed to glow in the dim light. She hadn't noticed him yet. She hummed softly, a melody that sounded like something from an old Hindi film, sweet and innocent. Then her eyes lifted, and their gazes met. She gasped. The tray wobbled dangerously in her hands. "Sir, I didn't know you were home already," she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. Arjun should have said something cold, something distant, the way he always did with staff. He should have nodded curtly and walked past. But he couldn't move. His eyes stayed fixed on her, his body frozen to the spot. And then it happened. A sudden heat, sharp and undeniable, flooded through him. His chest tightened. His breath caught. A stirring, deep and primal, awakened in him, something he hadn't felt in years. He gripped the edge of his jacket, stunned by the intensity of it. This was impossible. For years, the world's most beautiful women had tried and failed to ignite even a spark in him. Yet here he stood, completely undone by a housekeeper carrying a tray of water. Priya shifted uncomfortably under his gaze, her cheeks flushing. Should I take this to your room, sir?" she asked, her eyes dropping to the floor. Arjun cleared his throat, fighting to regain control. "Yes," he said, but his voice came out rough, almost broken. He swallowed hard and tried again. "Yes, take it upstairs." She nodded quickly and moved past him, careful not to brush against him. But as she passed, the faint scent of her, jasmine soap and something naturally sweet, wrapped around him like an invisible thread. His chest burned with the intensity of it. When she disappeared up the staircase, Arjun exhaled shakily, pressing a hand to his chest as if to calm his racing heart. It only happened with her. The realization crashed over him like a wave. No other woman, not one, had done this to him. Only Priya Sharma, the quiet housekeeper who had no idea of the power she held over him. For the first time in years, Arjun Mehta felt truly alive. And it terrified him. The mansion fell silent again, but Arjun's mind was chaos. He lay on his king-sized bed, the soft glow of the bedside lamp casting shadows across the ceiling. Sleep was impossible. His hand rested on his chest, feeling the restless rhythm of a heart that hadn't beaten like this in so long. Priya Sharma. The name echoed in his thoughts like a prayer he had no right to speak. He closed his eyes but found no peace. His mind replayed the moment. The way her eyes had widened when she saw him, the nervous tremor in her voice, the jasmine scent that clung to her skin. It was branded into his memory. He thought of all the glamorous women who had tried to seduce him. Perfect faces, seductive voices, bodies wrapped in expensive fabric. Nothing. Always nothing. Yet one simple housekeeper, barefoot in the hallway with a tray in hand, had shattered his defenses with a single glance. He sat up abruptly, running both hands through his hair. What is happening to me? But deep down he knew. This wasn't a sickness. It was something real, something he'd forgotten existed. The ability to want, to feel, to desire. Down the hall, in her small room on the staff wing, Priya lay on a narrow bed under a thin blanket. Her room was simple: cream walls, a small wooden dresser, a narrow window letting in silver moonlight. She stared at the ceiling, unable to quiet her racing mind. She kept replaying the encounter. The way Mr. Mehta had looked at her, intensely, as if seeing not just a housekeeper but something more. For those few seconds, she had felt pinned under his gaze, and her heart had pounded so loudly she feared he could hear it. "Don't be foolish," she whispered to herself, turning onto her side. "He's your employer. Nothing more." But she couldn't shake the image of him. Tall, powerful, commanding, yet strangely vulnerable in that moment of silence. She had seen something in his eyes, something unguarded and raw, that frightened her more than his wealth or position ever could. Hours crawled by. In his suite, Arjun poured another glass of scotch but didn't drink it. Instead, he paced the floor, bare feet sinking into plush carpet. His thoughts spun wildly. Why her? Why now? It made no sense. She was young, ordinary by society's standards, far removed from his world of wealth and influence. She had no agenda, no carefully constructed charm, no desperate reach for his fortune. And perhaps that was exactly why she had slipped past every wall he'd built. Arjun stopped at the window, staring at the city lights below. His reflection looked back at him, strong, successful, feared by competitors. Yet in that moment, he felt utterly helpless. Helpless against a housekeeper who didn't even know what she'd done to him. Meanwhile, Priya tossed restlessly in bed before finally pulling the blanket over her head. She knew she shouldn't be thinking of him. She had come to this mansion for one reason: to earn money for her struggling family back in the village, not to get tangled up in impossible feelings. And yet, no matter how much she scolded herself, her heart refused to listen. The night stretched on, restless and unforgiving, binding them both in silence. Two souls in different rooms of the same mansion, both unable to sleep because of each other. When dawn finally broke through the curtains, Arjun was still awake. His decision was already made. He had to test this. He had to know if what he felt was real or just some cruel trick his mind was playing on him. That evening, Arjun stood before his mirror, adjusting the cufflinks on his midnight blue suit. His reflection stared back. A man who seemed to have everything, yet felt trapped by one impossible truth. Tonight was important. A charity gala at one of Mumbai's most prestigious hotels. The kind of event where the wealthy mingled under crystal chandeliers, where women in glittering gowns competed for the attention of powerful men. Normally, Arjun dreaded these gatherings. Tonight, however, he needed it. He needed to see if what had happened with Priya was real, or if his exhausted mind had simply conjured it up. The ballroom was magnificent. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead, classical music filled the air, and the scent of expensive perfume hung heavy in the space. Arjun walked in and immediately heads turned. Whispers rippled through the crowd like wind through wheat. That's Arjun Mehta. Women gravitated toward him as they always did, eager, confident, beautiful. A tall model in a silver gown touched his arm, smiling with practiced seduction. Another leaned close, her perfume overwhelming, her laugh too loud, too forced. Arjun, one of them purred, pressing herself against him. You've been hiding far too long. Dance with me. She led him to the dance floor. As the music swelled and her arms wrapped around his neck, he stared blankly over her shoulder. Nothing stirred. Not even a flutter. His chest remained cold, his body unresponsive, his heart silent. The same thing happened with the next woman. And the next. By the end of the night, Arjun was certain. It wasn't them. Their beauty, their touch, their charm. None of it could reach him. None of them could make him feel anything at all. But when he returned home, the moment he stepped into the mansion and heard soft humming coming from the kitchen, everything changed. His pulse quickened. His chest tightened. Heat flooded through him like electricity. He followed the sound, drawn like a moth to flame. There she was, Priya, standing by the counter in her simple uniform, stirring a pot of something that smelled like home-cooked comfort. Her hair was tied back, her face bare of makeup, her hands busy with her work. Ordinary. Innocent. Yet his entire world tilted. Arjun gripped the doorframe, his breath catching. Every nerve in his body came alive, as if her presence alone commanded him. It was undeniable now. Surrounded by glamour at the gala, he had felt nothing. But one glance at her, one sound of her humming, and his blood ran hot. It only happened with her. And for the first time in years, Arjun Mehta was terrified, not of losing his empire, but of losing control of his heart. If you're enjoying this story of unexpected love and courage, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us bring more heartwarming stories like this to viewers around the world. Let's continue. The days that followed tested every ounce of Arjun's self-control. He was a man known for discipline. He had built his empire on sharp focus, quick decisions, and an iron will. But Priya Sharma was unlike any challenge he'd ever faced. She wasn't a rival businessman. She wasn't a scheming socialite. She was his housekeeper. And yet, every time she entered a room, Arjun felt his carefully constructed walls crumble a little more. On Tuesday morning, he sat at the long dining table, scrolling through financial reports on his tablet. The smell of fresh coffee drifted in before she did. "Good morning, sir." Priya's voice was soft, carrying a warmth that made his chest tighten painfully. She placed a steaming cup of coffee before him, then moved gracefully around the table, setting his breakfast with careful precision. He tried not to watch her. He failed. His eyes traced the way her uniform fit neatly against her frame, the way a strand of hair slipped loose from her bun, the way her lips pressed together in concentration. His body reacted instantly, that same forbidden heat, that same overwhelming pull. "Thank you," he managed, his voice lower than intended. Her eyes flicked to him briefly, and he caught it, the faintest blush coloring her cheeks. She quickly turned away, but that single moment unsettled him more than the entire gala ever could. Later that evening, Arjun retreated to the mansion's library, hoping the silence of books would steady his restless mind. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. He found Priya there, dusting the tall shelves with a feather duster. Her uniform sleeves were rolled slightly above her elbows, and she stood on a small stool to reach the top row. "Priya," he said, his tone sharper than intended. Startled, she nearly dropped the duster. "Sir, I didn't know you were here." She stepped down quickly, smoothing her uniform, her cheeks warm with embarrassment. The air between them thickened. Arjun swallowed hard. He should have walked away. Instead, he heard himself ask, "Do you read any of these books when you have time?" Her eyes widened in surprise. "Sometimes, sir. When I finish my chores early. I like poetry and history." That answer pierced through him. She wasn't just a housekeeper. She had dreams, thoughts, a world beyond cleaning and serving. "Interesting," he murmured, forcing himself to look back at the shelves. But his hand gripped the back of a chair, his knuckles white with the effort of restraint. That night, lying in bed, Arjun stared at the ceiling. For years, women had come and gone from his life, their beauty shallow, their touch meaningless. But Priya unsettled him in ways he couldn't explain. She was ordinary to the world, yet extraordinary to him. He clenched his fists under the sheets. This was dangerous. She was his employee, his responsibility. And yet every fiber of his being screamed for her. The next morning, the mansion seemed unusually quiet. Arjun woke before dawn, restless from another sleepless night. He went down to the garden for air. The sun had barely risen, but Priya was already outside, tending to the flowers with a watering can. Her hair was tied loosely, strands brushing her face as she bent over the roses. Arjun froze at the sight. He told himself to turn back. Instead, his feet carried him forward. "Priya." His voice came deep and unexpected. She straightened quickly, water drops sliding down her wrist as she looked at him. "Good morning, sir. You're up early." He studied her, not just her beauty, but her ease, her peace. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. She was simply herself. And that destroyed him most of all. Days turned into a beautiful torture. Arjun found himself creating excuses to be near her. He would appear in the kitchen when she prepared meals. He would linger in rooms she was cleaning. He would ask her questions just to hear her voice. And Priya, she began to notice. She felt the weight of his gaze, the shift in the air whenever they were alone. Her heart would race, her hands would tremble, and she would flee to another room, terrified of what she was beginning to feel. One evening, during a business dinner at the mansion, Arjun sat at the head of the table surrounded by wealthy guests. Priya served them, keeping her eyes down, moving gracefully between plates and glasses. A woman in a red dress laughed too loudly, placing her hand on Arjun's arm, letting it linger. Priya's chest tightened painfully, though she had no right to feel anything. When her eyes accidentally met Arjun's across the table, she saw it. The heat, the possession, the frustration burning in his gaze. He wasn't looking at the woman beside him. He was looking only at her. After the guests left, Priya carried trays toward the kitchen. Heavy footsteps made her stop. "Arjun." He caught up to her in the darkened hallway, his face unreadable. "You've been avoiding me." "I haven't, sir," she said quickly, staring at the tray in her hands. "Don't lie to me, Priya." His tone sharpened, though his eyes softened with something she couldn't name. She gripped the tray tighter, knuckles white. "What happened? We need to be careful." He stepped closer, his voice rough. "Careful doesn't change what I feel. It doesn't change what you feel either." Her breath hitched. She couldn't reply, couldn't move. "You can run from me if you want," he said softly. "But you can't run from what's already inside your heart." With that, he walked away, leaving her trembling. The breaking point came during a violent thunderstorm. Rain lashed against the windows, and power flickered before cutting out completely. Backup lamps cast dim shadows through the mansion. Priya moved through the halls, checking windows and gathering towels to catch leaks. Her uniform clung slightly to her from the damp air. Arjun found her in a corridor, bent over with a towel pressed against a window frame. Lightning flashed behind her, illuminating her silhouette. "Priya!" She turned, startled, chest rising and falling rapidly. "Sir, the storm, it's leaking." Her words died. His eyes were on her, not the storm. He stepped closer, too close, until the thunder seemed distant compared to the sound of their breathing. "You drive me mad," Arjun confessed, his voice breaking. "Do you even know what you've done to me?" Her lips parted, trembling. "Sir, please." He reached out, brushing a damp strand of hair from her cheek, his fingers lingering. Her skin burned under his touch. When he cupped her face, she didn't pull away. It happened suddenly, as if the storm itself pushed them together. Arjun's lips crashed onto hers, fierce, desperate, years of restraint unraveling in a single moment. Priya stiffened at first, then melted into the kiss, her hands trembling as they rose to his chest. The world, the rain, the thunder, the mansion, faded into nothing. But as the kiss deepened, reality pierced through. Priya gasped and pulled back, her eyes wide. "Sir, this isn't right." Arjun stood frozen, his breath ragged. "You're right," he muttered, though every muscle screamed to pull her back. He turned sharply and walked away, leaving her trembling against the wall. The scandal broke like wildfire. Someone had seen them. Photos appeared in newspapers, grainy but damning. Headlines screamed, "Billionaire Arjun Mehta's secret affair with housekeeper." By noon, the story was everywhere. News channels dissected it. Social media exploded. Shareholders demanded his resignation. At the mansion, reporters swarmed the gates. Inside, staff avoided Priya like she carried plague. But Arjun gathered his employees in the dining hall. His voice cut through the tension like steel. "You've all heard the rumors," he said. "And for once they're true." Stunned silence. He turned, extending his hand toward Priya, who stood trembling at the room's edge. "This woman is not my scandal. She is not my shame. She is my choice. My heart. My future." Gasps echoed through the hall. That night, Priya tried to leave. She packed her small bag with shaking hands. She couldn't watch him sacrifice everything for her. When Arjun found her at the door, his voice broke. "You think leaving will save me? Priya, you're the only thing I don't want to lose." "They'll destroy you because of me," she whispered through tears. "Then let them," he said fiercely. "I can rebuild a company. I can't rebuild my soul without you." In the weeks that followed, Arjun stepped down as CEO. Friends abandoned him. His reputation suffered. But beside him, Priya remained, her quiet strength fueling his courage. Months later, in a small private ceremony far from cameras and crowds, Arjun and Priya stood hand in hand beneath an arch of white flowers. She wore a simple ivory dress. He wore a tailored suit. There were no shareholders, no gossiping staff, no whispers. Just two souls who had defied the world. When Arjun kissed her, it wasn't the kiss of a billionaire and a housekeeper. It was the kiss of two people who had survived every storm together. Years later, in a sunlit garden, Priya watched their little boy chase butterflies across the lawn. Arjun came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "They thought we wouldn't last," he murmured. She leaned back into him, smiling. "But we did." As their son's laughter rang through the air, Arjun knew the truth. Money and power had once defined him. But love, fierce, unshakable, forbidden love, had saved him. Thank you so much for watching this emotional journey with us. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe to Tales by M. Bell and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Your support means everything, and it helps us share more powerful stories of love, courage, and redemption. See you in the next story.